What happens when a young black girl takes her rightful seat in first class and the flight crew decides she doesn't belong? What follows leaves the entire cabin in stunned silence as one name proves more powerful than the system itself. You ever seen a child carry themselves like they already know the world's watching? That was Savannah Brooks, 8 years old, cocoa-buttered and polished, curls neat, eyes bright, and manners sharper than most adults. That girl had the kind of poise that made strangers pause and say, "Somebody raised her right." She was flying solo for the first time. Atlanta to D.C. Her mama, Dr. Loretta Brooks, couldn't leave her hospital shift. But believe me, she planned that trip down to the last detail. Proper airline escort, triple confirmed seating, snacks, instructions, the whole nine. Savannah had her little plush lion tucked under her arm and walked through that terminal like she knew where she belonged. Right before boarding, she saw a young woman in a wheelchair drop her phone. Savannah didn't hesitate, just walked over, picked it up, and gently handed it back like it was made of glass. The woman smiled. A nearby couple smiled too. That child gave out dignity without even trying, and for a moment, it felt like the world was right. Then she stepped on the plane, first class, seat 1A. And apparently, that was a problem. The flight attendant, blonde, tight jaw, clipboard energy, looked at Savannah like she'd walked into the wrong country, not the wrong section. "Are you sure you're in the right row?" she asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. Savannah, calm as you please, pulled out her boarding pass. "Yes, ma'am. My mom got me 1A. You'd think that'd be the end of it. But no, she squinted at the ticket like it was a bad check. Then, without a word, led Savannah aside like she was trespassing. Next came the lead flight attendant, a hatch, headset, clipboard, all business. He didn't even look at Savannah, just leaned toward a white woman in 1B. "Would you mind switching? We had a little mix-up. The young lady here isn't supposed to be in first." Savannah stood still, both hands gripping her backpack straps like lifelines. "I have the right seat," she said, soft but steady. "My mom gave me the ticket." The man crouched a little, voice dipped into that sugar-coated tone folks use when they don't want to say what they really mean. "Sweetheart, we just want you to be comfortable. There's a nice spot toward the back." Savannah blinked. "I'm comfortable here." She wasn't rude, she wasn't loud. She just stood her ground, all 4 feet of her. Then his hand started reaching for her shoulder. And right on cue, here comes the pilot. "What's going on?" he asked, already sensing the mess. "We're correcting a seating error," said Clipboard Man. "Looks like the little girl—" The pilot took one look at her ticket, paused, read the name, then read it again, slowly. Savannah Brooks. You could have heard a pin drop. He looked up like something just clicked. "You're Dr. Brooks's daughter?" he asked, his tone flipping from confused to alert. Savannah nodded. "Yes, sir. She said I earned this seat. That's when the temperature changed. Real quick." The pilot's jaw tightened. "She's staying. She's right where she belongs." The crew froze. The blonde's lips parted like she had something to say, but thought better of it. Savannah walked back to her seat like the brave little woman she was. No fanfare, no apology. Just silence. And stares. She looked out the window, hugged her lion tight, and didn't say a word. But inside, that baby knew. She had been judged before she said a single thing, all because someone saw her skin before they saw her boarding pass. And that right there was just the beginning. Let me tell you something. Nothing makes folks more uncomfortable than seeing a little black girl in a space they didn't expect her to be. Calm, confident, unbothered. Savannah Brooks had barely buckled her seatbelt, and yet the air around her was thick with avoidance. The crew? Suddenly, real interested in everything except row 1A. One attendant fidgeted with the beverage cart like it was a math puzzle. Another adjusted a seatbelt on an empty chair, but they wouldn't even glance in Savannah's direction, like she might say, "Hi," and break the whole illusion of control. Except for one, Tanisha, black woman, late 40s, sharp eyes and soft voice. The kind of woman who's seen plenty and doesn't rattle easy. She knelt down beside Savannah with a small tray. "You doing all right, baby girl?" Savannah nodded politely. "Yes, ma'am, thank you." Tanisha offered her a little orange juice, touched her gently on the shoulder. That was it. A simple human moment. But then her eyes flicked toward the front of the cabin, just for a second, like she knew she was being watched, and just like that, she moved on. See, that's the thing. When you're black and working within the system, you learn how to survive inside the lines, but you never stop seeing the whole damn picture. Meanwhile, up in the cockpit, Captain Danny Carter was pacing. He wasn't just a pilot, he was ex-military, protocol first, no-nonsense type. But even he knew this situation wasn't about airline rules. It was about something uglier. He pulled the lead flight attendant aside. "You even read the girl's name?" Headset man shrugged. "Doesn't matter? I mean, look at her. She doesn't exactly—" Danny cut him off with a glare. "That is Savannah Brooks, daughter of Dr. Loretta Brooks. Ring any bells?" Blank stare. The Dr. Brooks, the one who stood in front of Congress, the one who blew the whistle on that hospital refusing to treat black patients without insurance, the one whose research changed actual federal policy, that Dr. Brooks. Now, there was some color draining from his face. "I didn't realize—" "Yeah, you didn't, because you didn't bother. You saw a black kid in first class and assumed the system glitched, but guess what? The system did glitch. You are the glitch." Back in her seat, Savannah pulled out a little purple notebook. It had glitter on the cover and a worn spine, the kind of notebook kids treat like a diary, a mission log, and a love letter all at once. She was writing a letter to her mom, one sentence for every hour of the flight. It was supposed to be fun, it was supposed to be sweet, but that's when she heard it, a whisper, just loud enough to sting. "First class, of course, always a show with these types." Savannah didn't turn around, but her pencil paused. The voice belonged to a woman seated one row back, talking sideways to her seatmate. "Little princesses with big tickets thinking the rules don't apply. You'd think people would have some sense about appearances." Appearances. Savannah kept writing, but the pressure behind her eyes started to build. Her little heart knew exactly what they meant, and then, just to make sure the day didn't leave without one more scar. Savannah went to the restroom. The mirror greeted her with a message written in lipstick, big red letters across the glass. "Wrong seat, wrong skin." She stared at it, long enough for the letters to blur. She didn't cry, not then. She wiped her eyes, flushed the toilet even though she hadn't gone, and walked back to 1A like nothing happened. That's the thing about kids like Savannah. They learn early how to carry pain without showing it. But someone was watching. Tanisha. She saw the way Savannah's shoulders sank when she thought no one was looking. She saw the way she bit her lip instead of speaking up. That was enough. Tanisha marched straight to the cockpit. "Captain Carter, we have a situation." He didn't even ask what happened. He just nodded. "Because sometimes you don't need proof. You just know." As the plane began its descent, the tension in first class was thick enough to cut with a plastic knife. Then the captain's voice came over the speaker, calm, but carrying weight. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we land, I need to say something important. We have a passenger on board whose name deserves your attention, Savannah Brooks." The cabin stilled. You could hear necks turning. Savannah isn't just a polite little girl in seat 1A. She is the daughter of Dr. Loretta Brooks. A pause, the kind that demands silence. Dr. Brooks has spent her life fighting for those the system tries to forget. She exposed injustices in healthcare that changed real lives. Some of you may be alive today because of the battles she fought. And then he got real. Today, her child was nearly removed from first class. Not because of her seat number, but because of the assumptions people made about her based on nothing but appearance. You could feel it hit people in the chest. On behalf of this flight crew, I offer an apology to Miss Brooks. This wasn't a mistake. It was a symptom, one we all need to face. Clapping broke out. Slow at first, then full-bodied. Not a celebration, a reckoning. Savannah sat still, graceful, quiet, but if you looked close, you'd see it in her eyes. She knew what had just happened. And then, the flight attendant, the one who tried to move her, he walked over, knelt down beside her. "I was wrong," he said, low and trembling. Savannah didn't speak. She didn't have to. The way she looked at him, steady, proud, that was her answer. At the terminal, her mama was waiting, arms open. That moment, when Savannah ran into her, was all heart, No words. "You held your ground, baby," Dr. Brooks whispered. "You did exactly what I hoped you would. I'm proud of you." Unbeknownst to them, a nearby reporter caught the exchange. By morning, it was on every feed. Flight crew faces criticism after trying to move black child from first class. Her last name changed everything. Dr. Brooks responds, "This happens all the time. Today, you just knew who she was." The system didn't fall, but it cracked. And Savannah, she didn't yell, she didn't flinch. She just was. And sometimes being unapologetically present. That is the revolution.